Hello, everyone. My name is Madison Elmore, and I'm a school psychologist in Montgomery County Public Schools. And today I'm going to be talking about communicating in this new, weird virtual world and all of the challenges that come with it. So, thank you for coming today to listen to my little spiel. All right, so there are a couple of different parts of communication. There's the verbiage, which is the actual words that we're using, tone of voice. So whether we're saying something really sweetly, or maybe we're yelling and screaming and using an angry tone, those are how we kind of portray our emotions through what we're saying. And body language, whether or not we realize it, how we cross our arms, how we slump in our chair, how we sit up straight, all of those are different body languages that can portray a different tone or emotion within the message that you are sending. So the question is, how does each of these go into the messages that we send? So the parts of communication, as discovered by Dr. Albert M., include 55% of the message that we send through our body language. I was really surprised to hear this because I was thinking it was going to be tone, but apparently our body language actually says a whole lot more than we realize. So it's definitely important to know. 38% is our tone, and then only 7% are the actual words that we're choosing. So when we're looking at the virtual world, this is definitely important to keep in mind because in virtual communication, we don't have body language and we don't have tone. Granted, if we're talking over Zoom or over, the phone, we can have tone, sometimes even body language, but in sending an email or even sending a text to a friend or a relative, all we have are the chosen words. So we have to put a lot more emphasis on them virtually than we would have to if we were talking in person. So 100% of the message you're sending in a text message or an email depends on your word choice. So not surprisingly, it's very important that we select appropriate words and different structures in what we are trying to convey. So here are the things we want to consider. We're going to go over all of these in a little bit more detail as we go. The first one being font style, including all caps, slang or informal wording, spelling and grammar, emotional responding, email subjects, and smiley faces and emojis. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is all caps, which is a shout out to the Washington Capitals for any fans out there. Anyway, so these are two different emails. They are the exact same words, so the word choice does not come into play here. But I want you to see how the message changes just by making part of the first message all caps. So the student is emailing their teacher, Mr. Smith, asking about their grade because they feel that they worked really hard and they feel like they deserve a better grade. So in the first message, the student is coming off really aggressive with those all caps, even the bolding and the underlining. It's coming off very aggressive. In the second email, it's very straightforward. They don't sound aggressive, even just by changing the caps. The email is going to come off a lot more polite and respectful to their teacher. And to be fair, Mr. Smith is a lot more likely to look at the first email and just say, nope, sorry, grade is what it is. Compared to the second one, there's a lot better chance that Mr. Smith's going to be willing to have that dialogue and open up that conversation about the student's grade and maybe how they can go forward from here. All right. Punctuation. So in this email, this is probably an email I've sent in real life several times. I personally have a hard time not using exclamation points. I always feel like if I use a period that they're going to think I'm being very serious. And so instead, when I use all exclamation points, I come off as really super excited to be the new psychologist, which I am, but it's a little over the top. So I'm trying to be cautious of this and tone down my exclamation points, but just realizing it and stepping back and making those changes is always a hard but good thing to do. So font. Alrighty, so I don't even need to read this email to see that it's giving me a headache and that I don't want to read it. Like it's overwhelming. The font, the curliness, the color, the size, everything about it is overwhelming. So I just don't even want to read it. Like I just want to go to the bottom and I just want to read the straightforward, simple text. And so most likely what you're trying to say is going to come off a lot, more straightforward, and they're probably going to receive your message better just by the more professional, plain manner of this email, even though sometimes fonts and colors can be fun. As far as a professional email, probably not your best choice. So slang and informal wording. So of course we want to use our slang and our informal wording with our peers or even with our friends. I mean, okay, I want to start over. Okay. So slang and informal wording. So of course we're going to want to use our slang or our informal language with peers and friends and maybe even sometimes with our family. But when we're emailing a teacher or a potential future employer, which yes, as high schoolers, you are getting towards that age, it can come off as too casual. It doesn't portray that level of respect that we need to have when communicating with an elder, to be fair. And so in the following example, I gave 2 emails. One, the student is hopefully communicating with a friend, and one, they're hopefully communicating with a teacher. So in both examples, they're running behind on a project and they need help. In the first one, they say, "What's up?" and they call the person receiving the message bro. In the second one, they're using a lot more formal language, and hopefully that would be sent to the teacher, and the teacher is much more likely to help with this last minute ask than they would be if you called the teacher bro. So somewhat common sense, but needs to still be said. Spelling and grammar. All right, so this is one of those things, hate to say it, not a good excuse. There's no excuse to send an email, especially if you're sending it to a future employer or a teacher, with typos and words spelled wrong. To be fair, every email I've ever sent, if I spell a word wrong, it's underlined. So it's super easy to just scan and say, "Oh, I spelled this word wrong," and fix it, right? We live in the age of technology. Everything is spell checked. We don't even have to know how to spell because it is all right there. It's awesome. So in this example, the student is asking to be SGA president. So there's 2 different emails. They're the same, except for the spelling and the grammar. So the student is interested in applying for SGA president. In the first email, they have a lot of typos, which would be picked up most likely. However, they also have a couple grammar mistakes. So for example, they said the opportunity for me to advances my skills. Most likely that's not going to be picked up by spell check. So it's really important to just go back, reread your email, read it out loud if needed, or have someone else preview it before you send it if it is an important email, or, like this case, he's applying for a position. We definitely don't want to miss that when, applying to be the SGA president. I don't know how likely the first student would be to get the job when the second student sent a much more grammatically and spelling correct email. All right. Emotional responding. So if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, if you just walk away and you completely forget it all, remember this. Emotional responding is something that everybody could do better at, regardless of your age, regardless of, your job, anybody, everyone can do better. And so this text is one that I think we all have received and probably even sent that can make us feel some type of way. And that's the text K. So, we can interpret this text as, oh, this person didn't want to talk to me. This person's mad at me. This person, is upset about something. But why do we interpret K so differently than okay, when really they're trying to send the same message, but the word they selected was different? So the actual wording of the message can be interpreted differently, depending on the mood we're in and the things we've experienced lately, such as stress, frustration, discouragement, or just a negative self-view. Like maybe you're feeling down on yourself. Maybe the person receiving the email is feeling down on themselves for some reason. There's so many outside situations that can impact us or impact the person receiving our messages. And it's really, really important to remember and consider that. And so in the following scenario, Johnny is receiving the same email from a classmate about a project. However, the first scenario, he has a lot on his plate. He's feeling overwhelmed and he's in a negative mood. He's feeling stressed. And so he reads the email. Hi, Johnny. I wanted to see if you've had time to work on the group project. It's due this week, so we need to continue working on it. Johnny is feeling really stressed and overwhelmed. So he's interpreting this email as, my group thinks I'm not doing enough. Why can't they just get off my back? I'm never going to get this done. And there are just way too many things going on right now. So now he's feeling even more stressed out because he feels like his group members are, bugging him to work on the project. In the second scenario, Johnny had a great weekend. He hung out with his friends, he watched a movie, and he's feeling all caught up in his work when he receives the email. Hi, Johnny. I wanted to see if you've had time to work on the group project. It's due this week, so you need to continue working on it. Since Johnny's feeling low stress, he interprets the email as, oh, the other student in my group wants to make sure we get all the parts done to the project, and I'm super glad that someone is taking the lead on this, so I'm going to get my part done today. And while sometimes we have control over our scenario, like this in this example, first Johnny might have procrastinated, so maybe he's feeling a little overwhelmed. Or it could be outside factors that we have no control over that are causing us to feel stressed or some type of way. But the important thing in this situation is that Johnny is able to step back and he can say to himself, how am I feeling right now? Is what I'm feeling and is what's going on in my world impacting how I'm understanding this message? And a lot of times it's easy to just, in this fury, in this anger, type back some message that, oh, I'm going to get them back. I'm going to say something, nasty back to them. And, you can never take that message back. So a lot of times we cool down and we say, oh, I should not have said that. I should have just played it cool. I should have just let it go. But it's too late at that point. So to avoid the emotional responding, you want to consider taking a cool down, maybe going for a walk, having some water, watching a funny movie, doing something for you, which I'm sure you can find another mental health video on self-care and mindfulness and cool downs and all that good stuff. So if you need that, I'm sure you can find it. But just cooling down before you respond and remembering that just because you're interpreting a message one way isn't necessarily how that person is sending it. And that also goes to, if you send an email and it was received wrong, just as well, stepping back and saying, that's not how I meant the message to send, but this person might be very stressed. They maybe experienced, something negative in their world, and I'm just going to let them cool down and I'll respond later and just kind of clear the air and let them know that I was not intending to come off that way or going about it in whatever way you think is appropriate at that point. But just knowing that, people have their own lives going on all around them and we have no idea what they're going through. So when somebody, receives our message wrong, knowing that it's not necessarily anything we did, but they just need some time to cool down. All right, subject line. So we've all done it. We've all typed this beautiful email. We went back, we checked our grammar. We made sure that we used a good legible font. We didn't use any slang. We did all the things right. And we're just like, oh, I'm done with this. I want to just send. And you hit send and it says, would you like to send the email without a subject? And you're like, would I? And it's super tempting to just be like, yes, send. However, as you can see in this example, this student has a pretty pressing question to ask their teacher about a project due tomorrow. Not that I'm encouraging procrastination, but let's be honest, we've all been there. And so in the two examples, the student's asking the same question, but when they add the subject, it alerts the teacher to see in their millions of emails that they get. They seriously do get a lot of emails. They can see, oh, wow, Joe has a question about the project that's due tomorrow. Let me be a super teacher and I'm going to open Joe's email and maybe give him some help on the project. Compared to having no subject, it's likely going to get scrolled right past. And Joe is not going to get the help with this project. And emojis are fun with friends. Okay, so it can be pretty unprofessional to put an emoji in an email, especially to a teacher or a potential employer. It just makes you look like this young, unexperienced person, unfortunately. So while emojis are fun and they can sometimes help to portray that emotion that we can't portray over email, they can just come off as unprofessional, so we will just leave those out. All right, so we are going to review font style, all caps, punctuation. You can come off as aggressive, overly excited like I do, or just unprofessional using different fonts, different colors, all that good stuff. Slang and informal wording also can be viewed as unprofessional. Spelling and grammar, to be honest, it can make you look lazy because you just clearly didn't go back to reread or to just deal with those little red squigglies under the words. And nobody wants to look lazy in their emails. Emotional responding, so, other unrelated events can impact how we and others interpret messages. So taking the cool down before sending an emotional response is super important, and we all need to do better at this. Email subjects, so helping your email to stand out and appearing professional by adding that subject. It only takes a second. And smiley faces, emojis, just don't do it. Those are my tips. And those are my sources. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned some cool, interesting, helpful tips on how to communicate in this virtual world.